know you're all pretty hungry, so I'll be quick. Don't worry.
It's a coffee break, not
Oh,
lunch
coffee
break.
break. I'm sure you're dying to have a coffee then.
Okay. Do you want this one or do you prefer this
No,
one?
it's just fine. All right, good day, everybody. So, is this going automatic? Or hope it's not going automatic. How did you? I'm a PC guy, so. All right, thanks. I hope it's not automatic. Damn it. Okay, I think it will work now. So, hello everybody. So this is Games and Films, a love story. My name is Alain Xalabarde, and I'm a game designer. I'm a film director. I've done films and games since I was 13, and I've always done both of them. And this talk is more or less about my experience working in both industries and what parallelisms I've found. If you want to see some of my works or my portfolio, you're welcome to check out my website. Not now, later. So just to make it clear, it's not a love story like a romantic love story, but it's more like a father and son relationship. Because when I was working in both, I did notice, comparing to my dad and myself, the relationship that we had, it seemed like a lot of times people in the game industry look up to the film industry, like when it comes to storytelling or how things are produced or how things are marketed. And similarly, it seems like, same with my dad, it seems like, you know, the film industry is a little outdated and they're going through a little bit of a crisis while the games are kind of rising and they're the new hip thing that knows what's going on. And I see those kind of parallelisms with my own father. And the best way to explain this is through the history of both industries. We really find a lot of similarities. So for instance, they're both always driven by technology. They're both inventions that caught people's eyes. And for instance, yeah, the big changes in both industries were driven by technology. So for example, going from silent films to sound, or black and white to color. And with gaming going from 2D to 3D, and now with the VR and AR new technology, the VR and AR new games. Similarly, they were also driven by pioneers, people that created genres, people that thought differently about how to make games or how to make movies, and people that were that were role models for other game designers or other filmmakers. Similarly, revolutions. I mean, there was a time when you could only watch a movie when in the cinema, and it was only in a public space. And then television was invented, and people were able to watch their favorite movies and their favorite series in the privacy of their own home. And same thing happened with video games. It started in the arcades, and you could only play video games in the arcade. And then consoles came along, and you were able to play it in the privacy of your own home. Another revolution was the physical to digital. So I'm sure maybe some of you remember when you could buy a DVD or rent a DVD. Now nobody does that. Everybody just watches Netflix or just downloads it or whatever. And same thing happened with gaming. You would go to the store, go through all the games, take a box. Now you don't do that. You just go on Steam, and in a second you have it. So they both went through that similar distribution mechanics, and they had to adapt to that new distribution methods. And the indie resurgence, they both came along because of the same reasons. Cameras were cheaper, so people were able to make films on their own. And it was also easier to make a film because you could just do it from your PC. And same thing happened with gaming. You had a lot of engines that made it easy to make games. You had a lot of tutorials online that allowed you to learn how to make games. And that created a huge amount of new products, whether they were films or they were games. A lot of them sucked, a lot of them were interesting, but it was a really interesting revolution nevertheless. And finally, they both have a sort of rags to riches story where, you know, they started kind of not knowing what to do with themselves, and eventually they grew to become multi-million industries. And some of the industries that are like the main industries in the world at the moment. And to be honest, this was kind of like, I was like, where the hell am I going with this presentation? Like, what's the point of this presentation? I was kind of stuck. And this changed this week, coincidentally. Something happened this week that I kind of showed me what this presentation should be about. So on Monday, I published this game. It's called 13 Minutes Ago. It's a very small game. It's free. I mean, I did it on my own, and it was just sort of like an experiment. I was using Inkle. I don't know if any you guys use Inkle at all, but I was looking for I was interested in telling a very, very complex story, which is non-linear at all, and I was looking for different software, different tools that would allow me to do that. And it seemed like Inkle was the one that did allow me to do that, and I said, I'm going to see if I can break the tool. I'm going to see how complex I can make it. So it's a text-based adventure. It's very simple in that sense. There's some rain in the background, there's some ambience noise, but that's it. And although it seems quite simple on the surface, it's actually really complex because there's a lot of branching stories and it's really complicated. It happens in 13 minutes, and in every minute you can choose a different character. So there's 4 different characters and a 5th one that you can unlock. And it's complicated in the sense that you could play a character in one place and change the things for another character later, and I'm sure there's still bugs in the game because it was really complicated. The thing is, the subject matter was Basque terrorism. I don't know if you guys know about Basque terrorism, but in Spain and in the Basque country we've had terrorism for about 50 years, and it only recently stopped, like in 2011 more or less. And yeah, well, this is just the different, I wouldn't call them achievements, but it's different things you can unlock in the game. So it's a bit of a touchy subject. My intention with this game was something serious. It doesn't trivialize the matter. It's sort of, I mean, these are much better than my game, but it's in the same sort of genre. I mean, I'm sure you're aware of Papers, Please, Gone Home, Passage. They're games that are not supposed to be just fun. You're supposed to learn something from it. It's a bit more serious. So this was the next morning. I published it on Monday, like at 6 p.m. or something. In the morning, I got this. And it was kind of weird. So I started to read the reviews, and I realized that people either loved it or they hated it. And the funny thing is, most people didn't even play it. Or they would say, I don't understand because it's in English, or they were like, I don't understand it, but I hate it. And I'm like, okay. What I noticed was that it was all over the press. Like in 2 hours or something like that, it was in 6 major newspapers. And I mean, if you work in the game industry, you can imagine a game about terrorism. That's what it sounds like, basically. On a news title, it's, oh, cool, terrorists, kill people, that's awesome. And that's not the point of the game. So less than 24 hours later, it was all over the newspaper. I had radio interviews, I was on TV. You can imagine what Twitter was like. People are really nice there, by the way. Google Play the reviews were mad. Anyway, it was madness. It was really, I was having a headache. It was crazy. And the funny thing is, a few years ago, like about 3 years ago, I was working on this film. It's called The Last Standing Oak, and it's also about the Basque conflict and about Basque terrorism. But it didn't have this reaction. It was controversial as well, but it didn't have this reaction of like, well, you shouldn't make a game about, or a movie about this. So it got me thinking, and I was like, what, I tried to explain it in the interviews, and I said, listen, you don't watch Schindler's List because it's a fun movie. You watch Schindler's List because of something else. It makes you think. And you don't play 13 Minutes Ago because it's a fun game. It's something else. And it was just really hard to get this message across. And when newspapers are saying they turn terrorism into a game, it doesn't really help. So 2 days later, I mean, this was supposed to be, like I said, it was an experiment. It was for my friends and maybe some geeks that would like this genre or something. And in 2 days, it was more than 1,000 downloads. I wasn't expecting that at all. That is until it got banned in Spain. It was a bit disappointing. I mean, they reported it on Google. I think it was unjustifiably because they were saying, it supports terrorism. It doesn't. If you read the title, maybe, but if you actually play the game, you know that's not true. So to me, it sounded more like this. This is what it felt like. Because I was like, you didn't even let me speak. Like, you just said, I don't like your title, so I don't want anybody else to play this game. It wasn't, the reviews are fine. I mean, I don't like the reviews, but if you review it that's freedom of speech, fine, you don't like the game. But saying, I don't like the game, therefore nobody can play it, to me that feels like censorship. So now the game is available all over the world except Spain. which is weird because that's exactly where this is happening. This is the most, to me, it's the most important market because it's where it's very close to home. Maybe that's also why people took it more seriously because, it's not in a different country, it's right there. You might know somebody who was affected by this. So what happened here? Why did it get this, why was it received like this, and why didn't the thing that I expected to happen? I realized that the thing is, it's not as simple as, film is our father and that's it. We come from a big legacy of human expression. Film learned a lot of things from writing, they learned a lot of things from music, they learned a lot of things from their ancestors. And we come from this family, and we're at the end of this family, we're the new generation of this family. And there's one step that we haven't taken. A lot of these our ancestors went through the same thing, and there's one last step that we haven't taken, and that's turning into art. And the thing is that all those other your uncles and your grandfathers that you've noticed over there, they all started as a technology, and it was used to communicate, to get things done. It was used for pragmatic reasons. Then it turned into entertainment. People had fun with it. They played around with it. They saw what they could do with it, and eventually the hardest step was to turn all those things into art. To be able to use it to express complex concepts or complex ideas. And that is the last part that games is struggling with right now. The reason is that people see films like this. And people see games like this. So this has to change because it is changing. Right now, you talk about games and people are like, oh, it's a weird kid who has weird ideas. Don't listen to him, he's weird. And that's not true. This is changing, and it's a really big step that we need to make if we want our games not to be censored, and if we want our games to be taken seriously. So that's it. If you have any questions, please let me know now, or you can also check out the game. It's for free, so you can download it and hate it as well if you like. I made.
Because it seems like unjustified that it got banned.
Yeah. So the question was, did I try to get it back into Spain? I didn't make an appeal to Google because the reason was local law, and like I said, there is a law that says if you publicly support terrorism, it's illegal, but that's not the case. That's what I answered in my appeal. But Google's answer was sort of like, I was like, all right. So I get it because they probably have like 1,000 cases every day. They can't really look so deeply into each one. So I don't really blame Google for it. I do blame the people that they had two choices. They could review the game or they could ban it. And they chose to ban it or report it in this case rather than say I don't like it. So I'll probably try to make the APK available on my website, or maybe do a browser version, something like that. We have some people helping to translate it into Spanish and into Basque. So there will be, I hope it will be available in other platforms, but in Google Play, I don't know if it's worth the, I'm not a lawyer, so if any of you is a lawyer and has spare time, come talk to me. So, yeah. Anyone else?